19-year-old Brooke Wilberger lived in Oregon and came from a big family, being the fifth child of 6. She had excelled in her studies and showed great promise when it came to sports, loving basketball, snowboarding, and running. When Brooke was 16, she started dating one of her oldest childhood friends, Justin. They were both devout members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and while Justin was on a 2-year mission for the church, Brooke enrolled at Brigham Young University in Utah. Brooke had had difficulty with speech when she was younger, just starting to talk when she was 4, and her decision to attend BYU largely came from the fact it had one of the best speech pathology departments. That was what she wanted to do with her life, help people overcome speech issues and give them confidence. Her family said although she was softly spoken, she never held back if she thought something or someone was wrong. She had also outgrown her small community and wanted to experience more, so was definitely ready for college life. Her first year had gone well. After her freshman year was over, like many students, Brooke returned home for the summer and was keen to pick up some extra cash to see her through the next few months. Her sister Stephanie had got her a job at Oak Park Apartments in Corvallis, about 30 miles away from their parents' home. Stephanie not only lived at the complex, she managed it with her husband, so it really was the perfect fit for Brooke. A nice little summer job she could balance around her busy social life. She was going to stay with Stephanie for a few days at a time to do her shifts and then catch up with everyone else around it. May 24th, 2004. It was the start of the week, a warm Monday morning in Corvallis, Oregon. Stephanie and Brooke had made plans to get lunch that afternoon in between Brooke's shifts. At 10 a.m., Stephanie looked out her window and saw Brooke filling a bucket of water to go and clean some of the outside lights with. A few hours later, Stephanie, who had been busy making lunch for her children and sister, suddenly noticed the time. It was now way past 1 p.m. Brooke was late. Stephanie said she grabbed her kids, jokingly saying to them, "Okay, let's send the search party out." She walked around the buildings, assuming Brooke had either got caught up with a resident or doing a job and lost track of time. But she suddenly saw something that made her feel a bit uneasy. The bucket of water Brooke had been filling up along with her cleaning supplies was set by a nearby lamppost. As she walked closer, she realized that the flip-flops Brooke had been wearing that day were there too. The plastic part that goes in between your toes were ripped and they were covered in mud. Stephanie said it looked like she had been physically dragged out of them as she was trying to stay put where she was. She called her husband and they ran around for a bit longer. And when everyone realized that her phone, bag, and wallet were all inside her locked car just after 3 p.m., they knew it was time to call 911. 911, what's your emergency? Yeah, I've got somebody missing. A worker of mine that I can't seem to find. Who is seeing the manager? I'm the manager of the Oak Park Apartments, and this worker actually happens to be my sister-in-law. She's 19. When was the last time anybody saw her? Around 10:30. The police were immediately as concerned as Stephanie was. Lieutenant Ron Noble said, "Adults can come and go as they please, and we would normally wait to see if she showed up, maybe the next day. But in this instance, that just wasn't going to cut it." Brooke was clearly not at all the type of person to just disappear and not say anything to anyone about where she was going. A couple of residents reported hearing a scream that morning at around 10:30 a.m., but no one had actually seen anything. Within hours, word had traveled fast. While some investigators were going door to door to talk to everyone in the complex, others were tracking down the sex offenders in the area. And with around 2,000 of them, this was a massive task. Naturally, they also wanted to talk to her boyfriend, Justin, but he was as far away as you could get. His mission was in Venezuela, and everyone could attest to him being there the whole time. Marriage was on his mind, and Brooke had always spoken about wanting a big family with lots of kids. Justin just couldn't believe that this was now his reality. He was ruled out as quickly as they spoke to him. Police Captain Jonathan Sassaman said, "It was extraordinarily stressful. You had a community looking for answers. You had a community that was scared. Was there somebody else out there who's going to be the next victim?" Brooke's case soon became one of the most publicized in Oregon's history. Hundreds of people were involved in the searches, and the FBI were called upon. People were reporting to have seen who they thought could be Brooke all over parts of Oregon and further out even than that. A couple of days later, investigators did get a tip about a man named Sung-Koo Kim, and he was soon a person of interest. Kim was a very reclusive 30-year-old who lived about 80 miles away from Corvallis with his parents. He had been put on their radar when it came to light. He had been stealing underwear from college dorms all over the place and had since been charged with burglary. One dorm room he stole from was in fact at Oregon State University, just a stone's throw away from Oak Park Apartments. A search of his home had uncovered thousands and thousands of pairs of women's underwear, and the detective's theory was, with behavior like this, it could easily escalate. Just before the sun rose and almost a week after Brooke vanished, the police raided Kim's home. He had tens of thousands of sexual images and videos on his computer, many of which depicted scenes of rape, torture, and mutilation. They also found a file on his desktop called osu.doc. Oregon State University. It had been written after Brooke went missing, but it was very disturbing. It was essentially a guide on how to commit a sexually motivated crime and get away with it, including what clothes should be worn and what you should take with you. But there was nothing there that linked him to Brooke. Even though this had been a strong, albeit troubling lead, Kim was eventually ruled out when data from his computer and phone and receipts showed he was at home and buying things from a store with his dad at the time she went missing. Kim would later serve 7 years for various charges, including burglary, and his parents would also file a lawsuit against the authorities for the way the officers stormed their home that morning, saying it was excessive and scary. They settled for just over $300,000. In Brooke's case, days turned into weeks, and it would soon be a month, with still no idea where the 19-year-old was. And obviously, with every day that passed, statistically, the likelihood of Brooke being found alive was dwindling. Investigators did have a tip about a vehicle they were pursuing, which had cropped up a couple of times. They were seeking information about what they thought was a dark green minivan, perhaps a 1997 model. They also asked a man named Brian to come forward, as he had previously called 911 to report the same vehicle speeding dangerously. Detectives had several reports of what sounded like the same van driving around near Oregon State University the day Brooke vanished. A university employee called Bob reported that he had seen the minivan with a Minnesota license plate in the parking lot. He watched as the driver talked to a female student, and the student was so freaked out she reported her encounter to an employee at the university. A second student said the vehicle pulled in front of her and asked her for directions. She quickly hurried away after the man got out and opened the back door. These were promising leads, but there was still a long way to go to working out who was in the vehicle and whether that person was even connected. Before long, a painful 6 months had passed without any updates. The search parties were teetering off, and life for everyone had continued to carry on. Finally, in November, over 1,400 miles away in Albuquerque, New Mexico, officers would receive a call that had so many similarities to Brooke's case it would be impossible to ignore. Dara Finks had been driving with her daughters when they saw a young woman running naked and hysterical across the main road and over to a restaurant, where she started trying to pull the door open. Dara pulled over right away and got the woman into her car. She was a 22-year-old foreign exchange student from Russia, and she tearfully recounted how she had just been walking when someone grabbed her from behind and pressed a knife up to her throat. A tall, broad white male with a shaved head and beard dragged her into his car, sexually assaulted her, then tied her up with her own shoelaces. He then pulled out into an apartment complex and left the car to go inside one of the apartments. Miraculously, she had broken free and just started running for her life. Dara called 911 and gave a description for the man and his very distinctive car. A 2-door red car with a red floral interior and a stuffed toy hanging near the window. And authorities very quickly got a name: Joel Patrick Courtney, a married father of 3 living in an Albuquerque suburb with his family. He was found just a few blocks away inside his car with a crack pipe and a knife. Joel was actually a convicted sex offender, having served time in 1991 for sexual assault, along with many other crimes over the years. The 38-year-old Joel had spent most of his adult life moving around, picking up various jobs. He had been everywhere from Alaska to Florida to New Mexico and Oregon. Joel's wife, Rosie, had very recently filed a restraining order against him after he had choked her. His sister Dina said he had a genius-level IQ as a child and seemed destined for a bright future. But at the age of just 11, he started taking drugs, which got progressively harder. And during his teenage years, he developed a fascination with Satanism. He didn't finish high school, ended up in and out of juvenile detention centers for various offenses, including a sexual assault he had committed at 18. And Dina even said he used to come into her room in the middle of the night, choke her, and attempt to rape her. Dina said things did seem to settle down when, at 23, Joel met Rosie and had his children. And despite the horrific experiences she had with him, she chose to forgive and continue trying to build a relationship with him. But after a few years, he slipped back into drugs and drink, and everything started getting much, much darker. Flash forward to the time of his arrest. Joel was still drinking heavily, regularly smoking crack cocaine, and getting DUIs. He was quickly charged with the rape, kidnap, and battery of the 22-year-old exchange student. And during his interviews, one diligent detective couldn't help but make connections to Brooke's ongoing and now very media-heavy case all those miles away. Brooke and the other student were also very similar in terms of appearances, and it seemed they had been abducted in much the same way. The detective called the police station dealing with Brooke's case to ask them if they had heard of Joel. It turned out on the day Brooke was abducted, Joel had been in that very area with his family. And when Joel's sister Dina was contacted by Rosie to talk about his arrest, her mind went to the exact same place as the police's. After Dina ended the call, she turned to her husband and said, "Do you think he couldn't be involved with it? It's impossible to even think it's possible." Before trailing off and thinking about the missing 19-year-old, Dina said she couldn't bring herself to say it out loud, but her gut was telling her he knew where Brooke was.
Good afternoon. I'm Natalie Marmee, and General Hospital will be seen at a later time. Right now, we're bringing you the latest and breaking news in the disappearance of Brooke Wilberger. We now know police believe Brooke was murdered, and police believe a man currently sitting in an Albuquerque jail was the one who killed her.
Despite them not having Brooke's body, she was now presumed dead. And while Joel sat in a cell, they spent months gathering evidence against him. When investigators tracked down the vehicle Joel had been driving at the time, lo and behold, it was a dark green minivan, the same vehicle reported by numerous people speeding around the area. A forensics team completely gutted it, swabbing and testing everything inside. And after many months of waiting, the results were back and they were crystal clear. In the spring of 2005, Brooke's DNA was confirmed to be inside, and her blonde hairs were in a hairband inside one of Joel's bags. From the DNA, they were also able to determine that Brooke had been raped.
We are at a milestone in this case in that on Friday, July 29th, last Friday, the Benton County Grand Jury reviewed this case, the case of Brooke Wilberger. The grand jury, after hearing all of the evidence, returned a 19-count indictment accusing Joel Patrick Courtney, who's 39 years old, of 14 counts of aggravated murder alleged in alternative theories, 2 counts of aggravated kidnapping in the first degree, 1 count of first-degree rape, 1 count of first-degree sexual abuse, and 1 count of first-degree sodomy. Under Oregon law, the maximum possible penalty for aggravated murder is death. With charges pending in New Mexico, however, it is unlikely that he'll be available for extradition to Oregon for some time. So don't expect to see the defendant before an Oregon court in the next few days or the next few weeks. As you know, the defendant was arrested November 29th of last year in Albuquerque on similar but unrelated charges in their jurisdiction involving the abduction and sodomization of a college-age student there in New Mexico. The huge difference between that case and our case is that the victim in New Mexico was able to escape and survive the attack and report it to the police.
Joel Patrick Courtney was finally charged with 19 counts, including aggravated murder, kidnapping, sodomy, and rape. The prosecutor said when he was shown the paperwork, he spent the afternoon laughing about it with his other inmates. Although Joel was still denying even having heard of Brooke, let alone doing something to her, when his mother visited him and asked him outright if he had killed her, he paused before saying, "They'll never hold me accountable for this." In January of 2007, despite Joel claiming his mental health issues deemed him incompetent to stand trial for what he did to Brooke, the court determined he was mentally sound enough. Brooke's mom, Cammie, said she was driving at the time she got the news and did a little dance around the car when she heard. She said she had no idea how close she came to falling into the black hole thinking about him not having to stand trial, but he first needed to face justice for his attack on the woman in New Mexico. A Rio Rancho man who faces a murder charge in a highly publicized Oregon case has been sentenced to 18 years in prison for kidnapping and raping a University of New Mexico foreign exchange student back in 2004. Joel eventually pleaded guilty and was sentenced to 18 years for kidnap and rape. At his sentencing, he continued to disrespect the court and the judge. "I have no respect for this court. You are the rudest person I've ever met. I would spit in your face if I was close enough. No, don't even start." Police said the more he showed what kind of person he was, the more motivated and frustrated they became. He was going to tell them where Brooke was, and they were going to find her, come hell or high water. 5 years since Brooke was last seen, and Joel's trial had been set for early 2010. He was facing the death penalty, and prosecutors wanted to cut him a deal in exchange for Brooke's remains. For months, he refused, playing games with everyone. But after several particularly bad beatings from inmates and unable to get any anxiety medication, he decided he wanted a change of jail. He had weaponized knowing exactly where Brooke was and held it over everyone's heads all this time until he could get something from it. So this was what he came back with. Joel said he wanted to serve out the remainder of his 18-year sentence in New Mexico near his family and then move back to Oregon after that was done. He also wanted the death penalty off the table. Everyone agreed. And with this, Joel changed his plea to guilty and finally agreed to give Brooke's family all they had been asking and praying for half a decade. Missing person posters are being taken down for Brooke Wilberger. More than 5 years after she disappeared, police in Oregon have finally located the remains of the 19-year-old college student. Oregon's Attorney General is in Eugene for several reasons, but he spent the day tackling questions about the Wilberger case. John Kruger says he applauds the work done by the Benton County District Attorney's Office. Oregon's AG is pleased with the outcome, getting Joel Courtney to give up Wilberger's remains as part of the plea deal. He also believes the DA's office handled the case well, especially since the case came with a lot of public scrutiny. I think it was very important not only to make sure that he serves a life sentence without any chance of release, but also to make sure that the remains of the victim were found. I think that was extraordinarily important. Off an abandoned road, about 12 miles west of where Brooke was abducted, her remains were finally found. He had hidden her body on some private property, concealing her beneath a fallen tree. They used dental records, and she was also identified by her mom, who could say that the silver watch she had got her for Christmas had still been on her. Cammie remembered gifting it to her so clearly. Brooke's family, always showing strength and class, said they felt gratitude even to Joel. Cammie said, "We are thankful that justice is served and he will have no opportunity for parole. Now he can go on with what's left of his life." In court, Joel admitted to what he had done. He said he had been driving around the area that fateful day looking for a young woman. He admitted he attempted to abduct 2 other university students before Brooke, the 2 students that had already shared their stories, and he was charged in their cases too. But when he drove past Brooke, alone and working, he changed his approach and pretended to be a delivery driver. Once she was near the van, he abducted her at knife point, dragging her inside, where he bound her with tape and sexually assaulted her. He drove her to the woods, where he kept her alive overnight before bludgeoning her to death. He said he wasn't even thinking about killing her until he saw how hard she fought against him, and he was surprised at how strong she was. He said he hid her body in such a way that it was unlikely she ever would have been found unless he told someone. Not much has been disclosed in the Wilberger case about where the crime actually took place. Authorities say it happened in the woods in Benton County in Coastal Range, and for the people who live in that area, they say they can't believe something like this could have happened in their backyard. This is a real, nice community and, bad stuff. It just never happens out here. It just doesn't. It's kind of eerie that he went in, he could have been in here. He could have been in here the next day, the day before. Mark Scacco owns the Blodgett Country Store, which is about 3 miles from where he thinks the crime was committed. He says he's surprised it could have happened so close to home. Some of us actually did search that area because it's a little abandoned road. And nobody had seen anything. So, if something wants to be hidden, it can be hidden very well. But the news about Wilberger hasn't changed their attitude about Blodgett. We love it here, and we just are so sorry that this happened. But it doesn't change our feeling about the community. And no one worries there's anything else hidden in these woods. I'm not going to pick up my bags and leave. This is my hometown. And anywhere you go, it can happen. He has never apologized to her family or shown any signs of care or remorse. He was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Dina, Joel's sister, said, "From the very first inkling of a possible connection, the core of our family has stood with solid conviction that while we love Joel, we answer to God first and foremost, and would commit to making ourselves available to the pursuit of clarification of facts and events. Our first prayer from November 30th, 2004 was, Father God, we ask if Joel is responsible for this, that he would tell the truth, and please let Brooke be found. When I learned that the truth had been revealed and Brooke's body had been recovered, I wept. The emotions are bittersweet, but I'm so thankful that the Wilberger family can have the resolution that they have so diligently sought." And while it isn't known for sure, but the FBI strongly believe he could be a serial killer, identifying 3 additional victims in Oregon that Joel may have sexually assaulted and killed. The prosecutor said she had only ever met one other person that made the hair on the back of her neck stand up in the same way because they were so evil, and that was serial killer Richard Ramirez.
It's just a total community effort, and not just Corvallis, but all of Oregon, really. Everybody worked together.
Cammie Wilberger takes the podium at the LaSalle's Stewart Center in Corvallis. She sends her deepest thanks to those, some strangers, who've lent their support over the years to help find her daughter Brooke. Because it seems one way or another, everyone in Corvallis is connected to the Brooke Wilberger case. The story lingering strong for years in the town, so much that it easily brings tears to former volunteers.
I walked several different days, trying to find her.
Organizers say without a doubt this has been a defining moment for Corvallis.
We do not want ourselves as individuals or this community to be defined by tragedy.
As for the next couple of years, Cammie Wilberger says she hopes not for closure, but a beginning to what's been shown to them all these years, love.
We have a lot of things that as a family we're doing, but everybody just moving on, doing good things, trying to, do the best you can do to love other people and do what Brooke would have done.
Brooke went from washing streetlights and looking forward to lunch with her sister to being in an utter nightmare in the space of a few minutes. Her sister Stephanie said, "I could be 80 years old and have my entire life behind me, and I don't think I will ever reflect on what happened to her and be okay with it. Time's not going to make that okay." She added that she can't imagine but longs for a day when she doesn't continuously run over that morning back in 2004, thinking of what she could have changed. Could she have changed anything at all? It's truly an exhausting loop of thoughts. Cammie said the grief will always run deeper than anyone can imagine. That's it for today. If you found it thought-provoking, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay updated. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and as always, stay safe, stay smart, and keep seeking the truth.